Aloha. We have an important discussion about 13 charter amendments that will be coming up at our 2022 elections. Today we have a discussion of one of the most important charter amendments on water and our water rights. Today we have with us Alika Atai, former county council member and also agricultural expert. We have Lucienne Dene. Probably many of you know her for her activists in terms of our water systems that we have, also part of her involvement with the Sierra Club. Shane Sinanci, who's our county council member, and also the author of this very important charter amendment that we'll be discussing today. And Shay Chan Hargis. She is the former chair of our water board and also an activist who's been very much involved with our water systems and our agricultural systems here. And also, we have Tara Apo, and she is a priest, and she's also a member of the Sierra Club and stream monitoring, and also she's a student at the university. We'll start with Alika, who will give us a blessing, and also then we'll start with a discussion of the big picture overview of our water system.
Thank you. In the spirit of Aloha Aina, we also want to recognize our kupuna and open this meeting with a pule and a blessing. E natua, naivi o tamotu, Maui o kāma. E natu puna, tūpuna kahiko, Maui o kāma. E nā pua, Maui o kāma. Nā keiki o ke kai. Mahalo ke akua. Thank you for being here. Aloha Maui. We're here to address water. Water that was addressed in the Kingdom of Hawaii's 1840 Constitution. Then later on, it was also recognized and addressed through Hawaii constitutional law back in 1892 as HRS 1-1. We then went forward to 1978 with that constitution, where we recognized the existence of the public trust doctrine centered around water. This meeting, we wanted to address the upcoming election and choice of this charter amendment. And I wanted to take a moment here to read, shall the charter be amended to establish Maui County Community Water Authorities with regional community boards to manage water collection and delivery systems acquired by the water authorities, including state licensed areas in East Maui, and to pursue long-term water lease agreements with the state to provide a long-term, reliable supply of water for domestic and agricultural needs. This is the verbiage that should be placed on the charter election, and we would want folks to understand the importance of their vote in supporting this charter. We want to look at the big picture, and the big picture is that we have come through the plantation era here on Maui, in Maui County, and we want to recognize the existence that the people, we the people, have an opportunity to establish an authority so that we can determine the participation and the partnership of water on every island here in Maui County. Definitely, this is not only an issue involving only East Maui. This is for all of the waters, all of the streams covering Maui County, and the impact that it has. For me, I'm excited I'm excited because this takes me back 60 years or 60 plus years to when I was able to go through all the various East Maui streams and collect and gather opai, and to have that native right to go and collect food for our family so that we would have fresh opai served at our luau's, and the importance of keeping these streams and these watersheds intact for our future generations. This is some of the big picture, and hopefully today we'll discuss some of the impact of this legislation. I want to turn things over to Lucianne, and she can carry us forward with the history of the water systems and so on.
Thank you, Alika, and I think you really hit it on the head. Reading what this charter amendment is about, people will get to vote to allow we, the people here in Maui County, to be part of our water future. Yes, we need to be in partnership with the State Water Commission. We need to be in partnership with the County Department of Water Supply. We need to be in partnership with the folks doing the excellent work up in the mountains, taking care of the watersheds, the watershed partnerships that we have, several here. But most importantly, we need a locally based way to manage these legacy water delivery systems, just like it says in the Charter Amendment. So how did we get these systems? Well, they were built 100 years ago or more to divert water from various streams in West Maui, in Central Maui, in East Maui, in Molokai. The streams were diverted and water was taken to where the drier part of the island was to give the plantation a steady water supply for sugarcane for the most part, or pineapple. So the waters were used to irrigate crops. The systems were managed by the big five, the big landowners, the big plantations. Well, guess what? There is no more big five. There are no more plantations. There are still landowners that exist, sometimes almost in name only. I'm talking about Wailuku Agribusiness, that is now Wailuku Water Delivery Company, and yet they hold these systems that are delivering the water that every one of us, whether you live in South Maui, Central Maui, West Maui, upcountry, you're depending on these conveyance systems, these ditch systems, and they're old and they need help. And so these systems have been in place. They were built at a time when we didn't really think about sharing the water with the streams. Now we know we have to do that. We know we have climate change coming, and we need to figure out the most efficient way to divert water and make sure water that is diverted is regarded as a very precious commodity and not wasted in any way. So we need a new mechanism to do that, and that's exactly what this charter amendment sets up. It sets up a water authority with the expertise to do that. So we need to build on our history and go forward and do what is needed for our own time, for our own water security.
I would diddle that and also make it aware that the importance for our people to have this vote, to have this choice, to have the opportunity to express into law the protection of our future generations involving water and water usage. I think you'll hear some government administrations saying that we don't need that kind of oversight, we don't need that kind of control. You'll probably hear it from some of the larger landowners saying the same thing. You know, we don't need this, but there's a reason why this is placed on the charter amendment. It is to protect the future of water and to protect the rights of the people and to follow through with the public trust doctrine.
Amen.
So if we go to our present situation that we have right now and look at the streams and the stream monitoring that's going on, there's a program that's being done by the Sierra Club, and Tara has been part of that. And Tara, could you just give us a little overview of what's been happening with stream monitoring?
Absolutely. Thank you, Paul. So we have a program called Namako ke Kahawai, which literally translates to the eyes of the streams, referring to those who are looking out for the streams. And this program was really inspired by a pilot program that Namoku Aupuni o Ko'olauhui in Wailuanui Keanai started in 2020 after they had some of their stream waters restored after about 20 years of litigation. And so we go out we try to get out about every 2 weeks, and it's really a community-based program. So we have community volunteers that want to help see what's going on with the streams, and we take water quality measurements. So we do temperature, pH, turbidity, which is water clarity, conductivity, which is the ability of the water to carry a charge, dissolved oxygen. And so we're building this water quality database that we can then refer, look for patterns, see how things are changing over time. So I think it's very important, and this is about resource management, right? So data, qualitative and quantitative data really is a prerequisite to good resource management. And this is also allowing our community members to go out to these streams and to the same place over time. And this is part of how our ancestors, the Native Hawaiians, were able to generate, such wisdom about how they were taking care of their resources, because they would observe over time these places. And so we want to start to facilitate that and facilitate community engagement and stewardship of our resources. And this is what this charter amendment is also all about, is having these communities who are on the ground and who are familiar with their watersheds and their streams and can see what's going on over time, and bringing these folks into decision making, because it's the communities who live in these watersheds that will know this aina the best, and they need to have a voice in how we're managing our resources.
So yeah, what I wanted to add on to what Tara was saying is this data that she's talking about has not been available to the community prior. So the Sierra Club work that's been happening, and then at Namoku, so the folks in Namoku, there's sort of a misconception, I think, in the community that when that water that Tara referred to was returned to the streams, now everything is fine. But that's not exactly the case. So the water isn't necessarily all going down to the low E. People don't know what's happening as far as the temperature. And so during COVID, Namoku got COVID funding, and they, for 2 months, had about a dozen underemployed and unemployed people measuring and monitoring the streams with their iPhones with this really great app. And they got information that they hadn't had for decades. For decades, it was EMI that controlled that information. So the thing about the Water Authority is it provides this opportunity to collect that data from the community, to utilize that data. So we don't have an entity currently that works with the community to get that data. So this is filling a gap that we really need because we don't know what's happening with the streams.
Yeah, and I think my thoughts anecdotally on the stream monitoring, I think this charter gives the opportunity to create regional community water authorities or a water board for that region on every island. And some of the questions, like my past experience participating with Navai Eha on Wailuku side and all the streams there, we had a discussion of one, the determination of what is the in-stream flow standards. Second, seaworm comes in and they determine how much water must remain in the watershed, and then how much water is extra that could be diverted for other uses, primarily for agricultural practices. Well, we ask, okay, who's monitoring how much water is being diverted? And there are days that kind of questionable. if they're taking more than what's supposed to remain in the stream, as the in-stream flow standards say. And so, we looked at Navai-Eha, and for something like $1,500 per stream, we could be monitoring the in-stream flow diversions just at home on a home computer. And so, this authority can cover all the streams on all of the islands within Maui County, and we would make sure that, one, the streams are not going to be depleted, therefore there's adequate water for all of the aquatic life. For me, especially, the opai, the hihivai, the oopus are all going to be surviving and thriving. Some of the streams, I hope future generations, they throw out the word sustainability, and I said, okay, my sustainability measurement is if you guys can serve opai, hihivai at the next baby luau. That's our measurement, and the progress has to go with stream monitoring.
Thank you, Paul. So I'm going to talk about the ownership of the East Maui irrigation system. And a lot of folks think it's owned by Alexander and Baldwin, or EMI, and Mahipono. So first we need to be very clear about who Mahipono really is. According to their website, Mahipono is a local Maui farming company that was created in 2018 in a joint venture between Pomona Farming LLC, a California-based agricultural group, and the Public Sector Pension Investment Board, also known as PSP Investments, one of Canada's largest pension investment managers. So let's break that down a little bit. It's hard to know what is meant by local company when Mahipono is owned by a California ag company and a $171 billion Canadian pension fund. Also, while Pomona Farming is based in California, according to PSP's own 2022 annual report, PSP's ownership interest in Pomona Farming is 99%. So in reality, Mahipono is entirely controlled by the Canadian Pension Fund. And so here's what's listed by Hawaii's Department of Commerce and Consumer Affairs. There's an entity called Mahipono LLC, and it was first registered in Hawaii on December 6, 2018 as a foreign limited liability company. Mahipono LLC has one member, Mahipono Holdings. Mahipono LLC states its purpose as the Public Sector Pension Investment Board. The address they list is Woodside Drive in Redwood City, California, which is Pomona Farming's address. So who is their member, Mahipono Holdings LLC? Again, per the Department of Commerce and Consumer Affairs, Mahipono Holdings LLC is also a foreign limited liability company with the same mailing address as Mahipono LLC, a slightly later registration date, Christmas Eve 2018, and their purpose is farming company. Their sole member is the Public Sector Pension Investment Board. So according to how they've presented themselves to the state of Hawaii, again, Mahipono and PSP, the Canadian Pension Fund, are one and the same. So for context, keep in mind that Mahipono purchased the 41,000 acres of A&B land and 50% of the EMI water system on December 17, 2018. That's 11 days after Mahipono became an entity in the state of Hawaii and a week before Mahipono Holdings LLC registered as an entity. So clearly the sole reason for creating Mahipono was for PSP to be able to purchase A&B and EMI with a Hawaii-sounding name. So before we delve into the Canadian Pension Fund, I want to talk very briefly about Pomona Farming. Though Mahipono barely mentions them or PSP on their website, the Pomona website lists Maui's lush greenbelt and Mahipono as our farmlands. They also include Maui Harvest, Maui Cattle Company, Shaka Tea, and Maui Grown Coffee as their family farming brands. Under its history section, Pomona Farming states that in 2017, the Public Sector Pension Investment Board bought the majority stake in a 10-year Oakdale-based almond portfolio and farming company and created Pomona Farming to invest in additional agricultural lands on behalf of PSP Investments, both in almonds and other crop types. The website also states that in 2019, PSP Investments, in partnership with Pomona, and remember, PSP owns 99% of Pomona, closed an epic land purchase on Maui, creating Mahipono. So now we understand who Mahipono is. Why is it particularly bad that the largest private landowner on Maui and the entity that wants to control East Maui water for 30 years is a Canadian pension fund? So I want to kind of back up because I think not everyone understands what a pension fund is. So let's start with the basics. A pension fund accumulates capital to be paid out as a pension for employees when they retire at the end of their careers. Pension funds invest large pools of money into private and public companies with a goal of ensuring that there will be enough money to cover the pensions of employees after their retirement in the future. So they need to make money in order to pay out for their beneficiaries. In the case of PSP, the beneficiaries are Canadian federal employees. According to an article in the Toronto Star about PSP, its mission is to maximize returns without taking undue risks. Canadian public pension funds are extremely effective and are the envy of the world. Since the 1970s, there's been a view that pension funds could be a potential source of working class power if workers could control investment policy. Workers' success in doing this, however, has been extremely limited due to legal parameters such as fiduciary duty and statutory mandates, alignment of interests in high returns to pay pensions, and lack of substantive democratic accountability on investment. Pension funds are becoming just as predatory as other forms of finance, taking advantage of neoliberalism, globalization, and colonialism, but especially privatization. The Canadian pension fund model has a reputation for being environmentally harmful and exploitative, particularly when it comes to fossil fuels, housing, healthcare, long-term care, and mass transportation. Since the 1990s, pension funds have played an increasingly active role in private equity operations, infrastructure privatization, and farmland acquisition. Canadian pension funds have also been very interested in water privatization. Over the last 4 years, 2 Canadian pension funds acquired controlling interest in a Brazilian private equity firm that spent $266 million to work with the Bolsonaro government to privatize Rio de Janeiro's public water system, which will cut thousands of unionized jobs, severely reduce service, and likely make water unaffordable for many. The Ontario Teachers' Pension Plan has become the majority shareholder in 3 key water utilities in Chile, and investment by Quebec pension funds in dam building in Colombia has displaced communities. Community activists opposed to the schemes have disappeared or been killed. When it comes to PSP in particular, in addition to their efforts to control water on Maui, PSP was involved in a multi-billion-dollar controversial water privatization initiative in Australia's Murray-Darling Basin that occurred during a crippling national drought and destructive forest fires. And you probably heard about those fires, right? Recently, PSP has been getting attention for its direct ownership of elder care homes and investments in rental properties. In 2020, PSP was in the news for neglect at its Rivera elder care homes in Canada. Rivera's staff and family members have said the company failed to prevent COVID-19 from spreading through its homes, and a class action lawsuit is seeking $100 million in damages. The Public Service Alliance of Canada, which is a huge union for government employees, has 230,000 members. 15 other unions and health organizations are calling on PSP to transfer ownership of Rivera into public hands. And what's different about Rivera is it's not an investment of PSP, PSP just owns it outright. So that's how they operate. A year later, the Australian Centre for International Corporate Tax Accountability and Research analyzed Rivera's UK operations and structure and found that Rivera had set up structures there to avoid tax on significant public profits. Most recently, PSP has been preying on Canadian and US renters. In January 2021, PSP invested $900 million in Pretium Partners, which funds a real estate company called Progress Residential. Progress has been buying up houses across the U.S., making money by reducing costs on things like maintenance and overhead, and increasing revenues by raising rents and charging fees. Progress is currently under investigation by the U.S. Congress for unlawful evictions during COVID, with a disproportionate number of evictions in majority Black communities. Through Pretium Partners, PSP also owns Havenbrook Homes, which is being investigated in Minnesota by Attorney General Keith Ellison for failing to keep its properties habitable, deceiving tenants, failing to take lead-based paint safety precautions, and also violating statewide pandemic eviction moratoriums. Through its investment at these apartment buildings called Starlight Apartments in Canada, where low-income tenants are currently protesting rent hikes there. So, Paul, what I've just described only includes some of PSP's investments, and those are the ones that have made news, right? They've made news because they elicited protests, lawsuits, or investigations. While there are all sorts of investors who are potentially bad for our community, Canadian pension funds, and particularly PSP, have clearly demonstrated that profit is their primary motivator, and they shouldn't be entrusted with our resources.
Thank you for that, Shay. It's very sobering when we start to realize those who control our most valuable resource here on the island have maybe other intentions other than supporting the people and the INA. Lucy Ann.
Well, I think that the 800-pound elephant in the room is that a foreign corporation is looking to the state and looking at the largest supply of water on Maui, which comes from the East Maui streams. They used to, EMI and HC&S Sugar Company used to divert 65 billion gallons a year from these streams. And the lease that is being looked for is a 30-year lease. So tying up 30 years of control, management, decision-making with a company whose track record, it may be wonderful here, but it's not wonderful in other places. There's got to be another way. And that other way is to have some local partner for the state agencies that manage the water, because it is not the kuleana of the county to manage the flows in the streams or the underground water supply. That is the Water Commission's kuleana. But it is not the responsibility of the Water Commission to manage any of these old plantation ditch systems. They just leave that card blank and hope that these companies take care of that. It is not the responsibility of our Department of Water Supply to manage any of these water delivery systems. They manage their own pipes. They receive water from these systems, and sometimes they beg for water from these systems. They're sometimes the last guy on the totem pole to get this water, where it goes wherever the corporations that control these old plantation systems decide that it should go first, and then the county is what's left goes to the county, or the small amount goes to the county. Our watershed partnerships are doing a great job taking care of the upper parts of our watersheds. It is not their responsibility to go down and see that these ditch systems are well managed for the health of the watersheds. It just isn't. It is no one's responsibility right now, except the remnants of these large plantations, some of which, as we see, get sold off, and their water rights are being sold off, and their water systems are being sold off. So let's face it, water is really a big deal investment of the future, because climate change makes availability of water uncertain. So private companies are going to be looking at places like Maui that have these aging water systems and go, wow, these systems can deliver a lot of water, and we can charge for it. And we don't have to put any money into the systems. We have to keep a certain amount in the stream, but you know, the state's kind of busy. They don't always look and see if that amount is really there. So why not? So this water authority concept is the new partnership we need. It's the partnership with the Department of Water Supply. It's the partnership with the State Water Commission. It's the partnership with the watershed management partnerships. It's the partnership with our community, because it will have a community-based board, each region that sets up its own water authority. And it will take time to do this. It's not going to be a snap of the finger. But we are creating a structure that is a 21st century idea based on our ancient ahupua'a management principles, that within each area there are decisions made that allow the water resource to continue in a sustainable manner and be fairly apportioned and enjoyed and supporting all. So when we vote on whatever number this ballot measure is, we are saying, gosh, we need to have a local partnership to make decisions about these systems that we've inherited from the past and move them forward into the 21st century. And with that, I will turn to Shane, who can speak to his inspiration for putting this bill forward that we're all going to vote on in October and November, when we vote to create a community water authority.
Mahalo, Lucianne. And as stated before, at the base of this Water Authority Charter Amendment is the public trust. And as public officials, we have the responsibility to uphold and protect our most precious resource, our water resources, for future generations. Part of that, the state constitution, to uphold this public trust, is to keep it for public use, for our basic drinking needs. It's for the protection of our watersheds throughout the Pai'aina. It's for the Hawaiian Commissions Act. And so all of these are part of this public trust. And as the Agriculture and Public Trust Committee Chair, I did inherit the 30-year water use development plan. During the last 2 years, we had many meetings about this, and this has just been the process, or the next step, in securing affordable, sustainable water use for Maui County's future. There were other great things that I inherited. I inherited the Board of Water Supply TIG report on the feasibility of acquiring the East Maui system. And we also got support from now Congressman Kahele. He's written letters that the county should go ahead and pursue this and end all these third-party agreements that was created 100 years ago. The council, this current council, has pledged their support and sent letters to the current Board of Water Supply for their support. And all during this process, we've had a lot of support, including mayoral candidates that see this as a way for future water security. If it passes in November, this board would be able to quickly get on board and start doing preliminary assessments, environmental reports, feasibility studies. With this new, as Lucianne mentioned, this water authority will fill that puka that we don't have between the current Department of Water Supply and with managing our watersheds. And so as a new entity under the county, we could now begin the budgetary process and look at capital improvement plans, maintenance plan, an operating budget, water rates and recommendations, and looking into federal and state and private funding that private companies would not qualify for, but we do. And so we're hoping, with a lot of the infrastructure funding that's coming down from this current administration, that we can look into more funding to upgrade these old systems.
Thank you, Shane, for that. And certainly, it really does have a huge impact on our future. And as just the last part of our discussion, if you could all share what you see in terms of how important it is for our future and what that means for future generations here in Maui County. Alika, you want to start the discussion?
I'm excited. I'm excited for this charter amendment to go forward and recognize that the people definitely, for me, I would say vote yes for this because you know it's a problem that's there. The plantation pretty much I would say doesn't really exist in that level, but yet every day that system is leaking water. I don't know the exact number. Somewhere is upwards into the high millions of gallons per day. But if this authority can get the funding aligned to then patch the leaks, whether it's following the current ditch system and dropping PVC pipes going that long so that we capture 100% of the water and we don't lose water, and all of that water goes back into the system that's available for other lessees to use for farming, agricultural or domestic uses. And it's just, you know, we're wasting water, and it's not good aloha aina practice to be doing that. So I'm excited that this opportunity is coming forward.
Well, I agree with Alika. This is the chance to invest in our future and have something that values what our community has to offer and fills in the pukas of where we have no one to take over these systems except, you know, distant plantation entities, some of which are not plantation entities anymore, but foreign corporations. And here's the new partnership we need with our Water Commission, with our Department of Water Supply, with our watershed partnerships. This is the partner that is needed to fulfill the community's vision of a sustainable system that has enough water in the streams and enough water for the people who need the water from the streams.
Shane?
I think 3 years ago, we knew that Maui County was moving in an unsustainable direction, and we quickly had to steer this va'a into a new sustainable direction, especially for our keiki. And so to promote food security, we created the first ever Department of Agriculture. And we're happy to say that in a few weeks, we're going to be confirming the first ever Department of Agriculture Director, who's a woman, by the way, too. So, and with that, we need to secure water to expand our agriculture and our food security here on the island. With anticipating climate change, sea level rise, and more drought conditions, even more so that we need to take this opportunity now while it's in front of not any of us, but in front of everybody. All Maui residents get to decide on this. So it makes sense.
Jay?
Yeah, I think this is such an opportunity. It's not even just an opportunity for our community. It's really an opportunity nationally and globally. Across the country, as you heard me talk about, private corporations, entities are buying up water rights all over the world. I mean, and even water systems that are already publicly owned. They're swooping in and they're convincing local officials, oh, you'd rather we take over it. And the problem is, in terms of social justice, in terms of racial justice, we need community-based systems. Especially when you're in the middle of the Pacific and you have limited resources. So to me, it isn't just about the East Maui water system. It isn't even just about water systems. What's amazing about this opportunity is we're creating a new structure that's community-based, where the community members say, of course we care about the future. Of course we care about taking care of the environment. Of course we care about our grandchildren being able to access the same, resources that we did. So our interests are aligned. when a private company comes in, their interests are not aligned with the community. And that's why we need to be learning how to do this, figuring out how we take over all of our infrastructures and steward all of our resources. So it's super exciting, and I hope everyone's going to vote yes.
Thank you, Cheyenne. Tara, if you could give our final statement and also talk a little bit about the event that's being scheduled right now that I think our community should really participate in. Tara?
Yes, so for the future, this looks to me like water security. Water will only increasingly become our most precious resource. It already is, but we're going to continue to see that, right, as we move forward into the future. Precipitation and climate patterns are uncertain. Across the globe, you're starting to see communities experiencing water scarcity and even water wars. And so it's just so important that we take the time now to do this right and learn how to take care of our resources and take care of our water so that we have enough for right now and for our keiki and our mo'opuna. So that's why I say vote yes. And I also want to let you know about an exciting event we're planning. We want to have a water walk. This is a historic charter amendment that's really changing a centuries-old system that is no longer serving us and hasn't really for a long time. And so we want to come together over this and celebrate our vai, march for the charter amendment, say vote yes, have a walk, and also, you know, celebrate, listen to music, listen to some community speakers, and really get the word out and the excitement out about, you know, how important this is and get people out to vote. So, mahalo. Oh, and we're looking at October 22nd, details to come, but you can save that on your calendar.
Well, I just want to pick up what you just shared about get out and vote, and I think that's extremely important. Look at what happened in this last primary. 34.8% of those who received ballots actually turned them in, and this is the lowest in the nation. So please encourage other people to get out and vote, and look at how crucial this is for our future. So please, if you know of other people who haven't sent in their votes before, ballots before, take a look at all the charter amendments. We have 13 of them. Vote yes on all 13. Mahalo.